Welcome back, everybody. Really excited to be heading into our second to last session of the day. Jesse here is our, I should have had this, our coordinator for digital
media content coordinator. It's a lot of words.
Yeah, I should have had that down. I meant to
No, you're all
practice that
good.
one. We came on. Oh, but yeah. So Jesse Brazil here. He is actually a recent graduate from that class of May 2022. So really excited to have him on staff now. And he's put together a great training today on how to kind of engage with your followers and really how to use Canva to your advantage. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on over to Jesse. Feel free to use the chat and of course, ask questions live if you'd like.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Scott. And hi, everybody. It's so great to be here and talking to you today about Canva and graphic design and content strategy in general. I know that is such a huge thing whenever you are talking about promoting your events, is how do you make it look visually? And that's what I hope to kind of cover today. As Scott mentioned, my name is Jesse Brazil. I'm the digital media content coordinator here at the Alumni Association. I just made a little slide here. This is like a little PowerPoint business card. I did graduate in 2022 with my BA in journalism and mass communications. I was in visual communications, and so that kind of really naturally led into where I am right now, managing social media, web, email, taking photos and videos for our marketing content, doing graphic design, kind of just being a brand ambassador for the association. As Scott mentioned, if you have any questions throughout, this is going to kind of be an open forum. We are going to do some live demos of Canva during the middle of the session, but if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We do have a little Q&A time at the very end there to kind of talk through everything. So kind of before we delve into actually how to design things, I want to kind of talk about what is a content strategy at all, like in a general sense of things. So this is kind of how you approach your messaging across all of your platforms. A lot of you have social medias, which is Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Pinterest. I don't know. The list is wide and is ever expanding, but there's also email. There's also like actual handouts, physical things. So knowing what your messaging is across your platforms. What is a message that you can make? If a lot of people ask me sometimes, I don't know what to do outside of promoting the events. I don't know what to do outside of posting a graphic for our watch parties. Well, on this slide, I have listed 8 different things that you can do, right? These are things that are welcome that people respond to. Again, our social media landscape is changing every single day, but these are always kind of evergreen things that you can do. If you don't know what to post, tell the story, right? Is the first one here. If you want to tell the story about the university, kind of harken back to tradition, right? Promote the brand, right? Do you have some campus photos that you took and you want to post those as like a throwback? That could be fun. Generate FOMO, the fear of missing out, right? If you have events that are fun and you obviously want people to go to them, how do you post something that people are like, man, I'm sad that I missed that? You can generate FOMO through your content, featuring your accomplishments. If somebody in your organization won an award, feature them, tell everybody around. People love to celebrate people's accomplishments, especially within your networks. Again, fostering your network. Is there a networking happy hour that's coming up that you can talk about? Is there going to be an expert there who people might be interested about? Creating nostalgia, kind of harkening back to campus imagery, right? Is there a way that you can post a photo from 20, 30 years ago that you took on campus and be like, oh, remember when this existed? Do kind of a throwback Thursday, maybe. Amplify a partner, whether that be a fellow club or council or something on the top level here or something on the university as a whole, amplifying that content as in like resharing it and showing other people, hey, this content exists. That is also something that you can use your platforms for. Engage in a dialogue. Again, don't post and ghost per se, which you just kind of post your thing and then leave. Kind of engage in your dialogue with your constituents, with the people in your community. It helps build your brand and also helps get people to have more affinity with your brand. So that is a content strategy, some ideas. As communicators, and I mentioned the word brand a lot, you are keepers of the brand in a way. So knowing that your brand message has to be consistent across in order to be effective. And what does that mean? It doesn't mean that everything has to be cookie cutter the same, but everything has to kind of work towards a similar goal and have a similar tone to it. Your platform denotes your audience, and your audience denotes your message, right? So what that means is, before I know what I'm saying, I need to know who I'm saying it to. And before I know who I'm saying it to, I need to know what platform is going to have that demographic of people. What's going to work on an Instagram story is not going to necessarily work over an email. What's going to work on a LinkedIn post certainly probably won't translate to Twitter. It's a case of you have to change your messaging based on who you're talking to. And those people are going to be in different places. Another thing is called smart brevity. We know now that people's attention spans on social media and just on the internet in general are shortening. I just read yesterday that the attention span of somebody on social media has dropped down to 1.7 seconds. So that means you have 1.5 seconds basically to get somebody's attention and to convince them to read more. That is something that means that you can't really post a novel of caption if that's all that you're posting, right? People aren't going to read the whole novel unless you give them a title that's interesting. So knowing how to grab attention, and you can do that through visuals, right? I use the office meme here, me think why waste time, use many word when few word do trick, right? Knowing how to condense your material into the shortest amount of words possible and using visuals to communicate what the message is going to help you to get your message out to more people and to get more eyes on what you're doing. One of the most important things, again, if people are reading things, is what is your typeface or your font? They're kind of interchangeable. In some instances, I'll probably use font for this because that's the thing that we use the most. So thinking of the tone of your font. And if you look over on the right side, we have this kind of comparison here of what does your font denote in your tone? Right? You see the words are the same, you'll always be mine. But if that's top scripty, romantic looking font is what you're wanting to go after, then you certainly don't want to have this bottom kind of scraggly handwritten. It gives off a different tone. It gives off a different message, even though the words are the same. The connotation is going to be different. So knowing what the tone of your font is it appropriate? Is it readable? Is it accessible to your audience? Thinking of your textual hierarchy, right? How can they grab the information from what you're actually writing? Thinking of what's my heading? What's my subheading? Any body text that you have after that. Generally on a graphic, you're wanting to do just a heading and a subheading. After that, people generally aren't going to read unless they are 100%, I'm already going to be in on this. So thinking of your textual hierarchy and then translating that to a visual hierarchy where people can kind of use their eyes to figure out what is important information. So things that are larger on a page are going to grab more attention and be a focal point more than things that are smaller. So for size, if everything on a page is black and white text, but you have something that's in blue, that's going to grab some focal energy over there. Thinking about spacing, if things are closer together, we're going to associate them more closely in our brains. But then if they're further apart, we'll think, oh, they're separate topics. Bold and italicized content will kind of draw a little bit more emphasis on those words. Thinking intentionally about how you use visuals and how you treat your text is super important. Speaking of visuals, right, we have defined color values. Right? You don't have to guess what garnet is anymore. If you're kind of looking at your color wheel and you're like, that's almost garnet, and I'll do that, you don't have to worry about that anymore. USC actually has defined values on their website, this sc.edu/toolbox link. If you go to that, it'll bring you to the entire brand toolbox. There's also a QR code to it on that one sheeter that Scott will send out. Knowing that garnet and black are our bread and butter, they're our primary colors, but you see also there are so many different colors available to you here, these neutrals and these kind of accent colors here. We generally don't use these ones on the right too often. There are certain use cases that they define on the toolbox, but know that there are a lot of colors available to you that still are reminiscent of the university, that the university uses in their messaging. All of that is defined for you on their website. Using crisp and clear imagery, right? this is something that kind of separates amateurs from professionals, is how clear your images are. Where's the focal point of your image? If you see something that's grainy, it almost gives off this amateurish vibe, which I know that your content isn't. So one of the best ways is to make sure that your images are sharp and clear. Your phones on the back of your cameras are like 10 times more powerful than they were 5 years ago. They are so great at taking quick photos and high quality photos that are going to look good on phones, which is what most people are using these days. So if you don't have a professional camera around your iPhone or your Android phone, if you snap a photo on that, it is most likely going to be usable. Just making sure that you don't morph it or kind of stretch it or anything like that. Lastly, thinking about your logo, obviously you want to let people know that this is who you are. So you want to make sure that your logo's on there. Thinking about the tone of the logo, you have both avatars and horizontals. Horizontal gives off a little bit more of a formal tone. Your avatar gives off a little bit more of a fun tone. Thinking about which one you want to use there and then incorporating that properly into your design. Remember, if you ever have any questions about anything that we've covered so far, feel free to drop it in the chat and we will cover that at the very end there. Before we hop into Canva, just wanted to quickly cover that thing about the color codes real quick. So what do those codes mean? For the most part, you don't have to worry about a lot of these numbers. Only 2 of the categories of these numbers are going to be important because they divide it up into a couple different things about materials, color printing, and screens. Really, you only have to worry about these last 2 here, which are your hex value and your RGB. This is for computer screens. This is for like laser jet printers are fairly faithful to what you see on a screen. Whenever you go to input a color, you'll see one of these 2, 115.010 for your RGB sliders, or this hex code, which will define on your computer exact garnet. And all of the colors that you saw before on this past slide have all those numbers baked in as well. So you can look at those and you can reference those all that you want to. Great. Thank you, Kennedy, for dropping the brand toolbox in there. That's fantastic. Yeah, take a look in there on your own time. We won't have time to cover absolutely everything in there because now it's time for us to hop into Canva. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen on PowerPoint and I'm going to bring us over into canva.com if I can find that screen. Here we go. So is everybody seeing Canva on their screen right now? Yes, fantastic. So everything I'm going to be showing you today is going to be available in the free version. You don't have to pay a single penny for anything that you're about to see. If you want to do Canva Pro, that is completely up to you, but I'm only going to be showing you stuff that you can do in the free version. And I'm going to show you how easy it can be to whip up something in 10 minutes. But if you have maybe half an hour, you can go a little bit heavier into it. So kind of backing up into my message about your platform defines your audience, defines your message. So knowing what our message is. So I'm just, for example, for this, I'm going to want to make a Facebook post about a watch party against Clemson, a football watch party. And I want to make it, seem like a fun happy hour kind of thing. Like it's not going to have anything else other than it's just a watch party. So knowing that we're going to be on Facebook, knowing that's our message, let's kind of explore in Canva how we can make something like that. You can go in here and you can say, I want to start a custom size, right? If you know exactly what your dimensions are, like if you know it's going to be 1920 by 1080, right? You can put those directly in there. Or what Canva has here are these icons, right? You can click this very middle one, says social media. Canva is very kind of enhanced their social media templates in recent years because of how many people are using it for social media. What you can do now is you can go onto the popular and you can start exploring here and says, oh, here's a Facebook cover. Here's an Instagram reel. I can actually sort by Facebook templates. It says, here's a Facebook post landscape. I'm going to go ahead and create a blank version of this. And it's popping me in here. This is the exact dimensions that work well for Facebook, according to Canva. So now you get to the scariest part of the entire design process, which is the blank canvas. This is going to be the most intimidating because there are so many different ways that you can branch out. But there are a couple of design principles. And again, this is shared in the one sheeter that you'll get afterwards, is figuring out what your focal point is. What do you want people to see first? And kind of thinking back to visuals are going to draw your attention, right? So maybe I'm thinking I want a super big football that's going to grab my eye first. And I'm thinking football. If I see a football, I'll maybe read into it a little bit more. So I can either go in and draw my own football, which, I'm not an artist per se, but I know that in Canva, they will have these elements over here. On the left side dashboard here, you'll see a ton of different elements. So I can click on elements. You'll see that I actually did some searching ahead of time, but what I can do is I can go into elements. I can type in football. And on this first thing under graphics, you'll see that it has a bunch of different footballs. Some of these have the crowns on them, which means that I have to pay for them, but a lot of these don't. So this one, for instance, I've been looking at this one very often because this is one that I particularly like. You can actually enlarge this as large as you want to without worrying about it being grainy or pixelated, right? So let's use this as our focal point. Let's come back to this in a second. Now we want to make sure that it is consistent with our brand messaging. So we need to make sure our thing is garnet and black. That's what people know. So let's make our background garnet and black. So I'm just clicking on the canvas here. And in the very top left over here, you'll see there's like a color wheel that comes up. If I'm going to be in Canva consistently, I'm going to want to define these colors, and I don't want to have to key them in every single time. So what I can do is I can go down here to where it says Untitled Brand Kit, and I can click Add Brand Colors. And I've already done this in the past, so that's why it automatically popped in there. But you can rename this and say USC Color Palette. And I go in and I add a new color, and I remember from Jesse's presentation that this is going to be 73,000A. Perfect. And now that's in there, and I don't have to worry about remembering that ever. I can just click it and it'll be there. So I can say I want there to be black in there, and I want there to be white in there, right? All of these codes are defined for you again. So maybe I want to change this football to a garnet football for some reason, right? I can go in here and I can see this kind of orangish brownish color. I can click on that. I can say I want to change that to my garnet. Well, it's not allowing me to do that, but I can go in and I can say, I want to click this. I can say add a new color, 73,000A, and boom. You see now this is a garnet football. There is a kind of shadow that goes around here. I want to put that as garnet as well. Let's make the whole background garnet. Why not, right? Let's really make it a whole garnet field, and let's maybe rotate this. And since I know that visuals grab attention, I want to make this super big. I'm going to kind of push it off to the side here and really grow it, right? So that's going to take up a good amount of visual space. So now somebody scrolling through, they're going to see the laces of that football, and they're going to know it's something football related. Great. Now we just need to put our text on. So on the left side here where it says text, right? Oh, look, it says add a heading, add a subheading, add a little bit of body text. It's very smart about knowing what you need to use this for. So I just click add a heading here, and I just say USC versus Clemson watch party. And so now I can kind of remove this. I'm going to change the font here. There was one that I recently found that worked fairly well for this, but you can look at it on your own time. Trying to find where that was. Gaggelin here. So I want to grow this a little bit. So that means I'm probably going to have to put this on 2 lines. I want to align this left. And this is all something that you can do on your own time as you're kind of playing around with it. You can really kind of mess around with it. You'll notice that as I'm moving elements around, these kind of pink lines will pop up. This right here is what we call the margin. So generally you don't want to put things too close to the margin, because if you do, it's going to cause a little bit of discomfort in the eyes, and people are going to get a little bit uneasy. They're going to be like, that text is about to fall off the page. Don't put it so close. Maybe kind of scoot it in. It's like, don't put your glass too close to the edge of the table. It's going to fall off. So let's kind of make sure that this wraps around the side of that football nicely. What we can do now is we can click on this. You can click add a subheading, and it's going to add it directly below. So I'm going to go on here. I'm going to align it to the left, and I'm going to pick, let's pick another good font here. Let's go to Glacial Indifference. I don't know. I'm just picking something random. And we'll say this is going to be Saturday, November 25th, 2023 at 8 p.m. because we're guessing it's going to be a night game. And this is going to be at the Place Bar and Grill at 123 Address Road. You get the idea. So you could add in all of your content there that's important to you. Now, the next thing that we need to know is who is saying this message, right? We need to add a logo in here. So I can go to my uploads. I can drag and drop my logo. I just chose Dallas because we were just in Dallas for the Final Four. And so I was like, you know what, why not? But this can be any of your logos. I went through and I made logos for all the clubs and councils in the horizontal in different color schemes. One big thing that you need to make sure of is that you are making your text accessible. So for example, if I click on this, that black on garnet is not going to read very well at a small size. Right? Same thing for this here. If I make that black, the readability just drops. So you want to make sure that you are having a good contrast ratio between your text. So in that case, we probably won't use this logo because it doesn't fit on there. It doesn't fit the brand standard. Instead, let's use this. This pops a lot more. It has both garnet and black in there. Generally, if you're doing something on garnet, you want to use the black square. If you're doing something on black, you want to use the garnet square. Kind of that vice versa. Let's actually align it to that margin here. And let's kind of shrink it. I know it's kind of visually glitching a little bit, but let's shrink it down to there, right? We're almost done, but now we have a little bit of trap space in this area right here. What can we possibly do, right? No fear. If you need to have ideas for content to put in there, it's always nice to put in a photo. So I only have some old photos here, but let's go back into our elements. And I want to click on, let's go to football again. You can go to photos here. Some of these you're going to have to pay for, but a lot of these you can just upload. If you have a photo from a previous watch party, you can upload those in here. All you got to do is click on it. It will load it in. And you can adjust the frame. It'll start cropping that image, and you can crop it in here. All you got to do is double click on it, and you can readjust how that image looks. You want to make sure that you're not distorting it or stretching it in any weird ways. But now, look at that. You've made your own graphic, your own watch party graphic. This is good to post out. Make sure that you have your captions correctly. Another thing, alternatively, if you don't want to go through all of that effort, is they have templates on Canva. These are going to be your best friends. So if I go on here and I search for football, right, I can click on the suggested templates down here, and it's going to have free templates for me to use. So say, for example, I like this one. If I go in here and I click customize this template, and I went ahead and did this before, this is like the cooking show where it's like I baked this beforehand here. If it'll let me access my tabs at the top here, it won't let me click onto the other tab. There we go. So I went in and I just changed a lot of the text on that graphic to make it that. So you don't have to start from scratch every single time. That's a lot of fun stuff in Canva. I know we covered a whole lot. I'm going to stop sharing my screen on there and just kind of wrap us up real quick back in PowerPoint. So let me bring us back in there. Boom. Great. Final thoughts. Real quickly, making sure that you have the right message for the right platform. I had this little acronym called TEST. Before you post, you got to test it, right? Make sure that your type of your post is correct. Your post is efficient. Is it using the space in an efficient manner? Is the size of it right? Is it not getting cropped off or chopped off? And is the tone correct? Thinking of those 4 things before you post is going to help make your message right for your platform. Not everything has to be graphic. So if you have fun and new trends that you want to hop on, you are more than welcome to do that. This is really your space to create your brand in your own. So if you want to hop on a trend like a Throwback Thursday, or there's a new TikTok sound going around that you want to make a reel to, absolutely go ahead and do that. That's going to make your content stand out. Thinking about time and day of the messages, this isn't as important because I know the algorithms are taking over who sees what and when it's showing up, but generally thinking of between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. That's generally going to be your best time to post. Again, there are some things that are time sensitive. So like if I don't know, if you beat number 5 Tennessee at home and it's 11 p.m., you maybe can get away with posting at 11:30 p.m. because people are still going to be up. But generally 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is going to be the best. And lastly, just use some live content, generate that FOMO. Not everything has to live on the timeline. So if you want to use your stories on Facebook and Instagram to do some live on the scene content, that's also a lot of fun. So that is pretty much all that I had. And I know that we're kind of coming up on time. So if anybody has any last questions, feel free to use the chat, type out some questions, or Scott, I don't know if you're allowing them to open up their mics or anything like that. So if you would like to open up your mic, I am super happy to help answer any questions. Thank you all so much for your time. And if you have any questions for me, I am here to kind of sit.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jesse. We do have time for any questions. So I see several people are saying how helpful this was, Jesse. So thank you. And in case you're worried, we are recording this, and actually Jesse will help us splice these into digestible YouTube videos to share out. I will add, for those who are looking to post on social media, honestly, this network is your greatest tool. Not only following the main account, because Jesse's always resharing stuff, especially on Instagram. It's great to follow him and see what he's sharing on our stories, and then you can just amplify what's on our story. But I would also want to highlight 2 people on here. One had to step off, Andy out of New Orleans. If you guys follow New Orleans Instagram feed, they are constantly putting stuff up, and Andy just follows a bunch of the university accounts and other fun ones, and he just grabs their post and shares them to his story. They get great engagement, and it gets people excited, and it keeps them at the top of their feed, so that when they do share about the Mardi Gras party, people are used to seeing things on that feed, and it's not hit by the algorithm. A new runner. Oh, sorry. And just a new front runner is Benny out of the Triad, North Carolina. He has just started off with a fire. I mean, Instagram, Twitter, all of it. He's been posting nonstop, and that is what it takes. It takes a little bit of quiet time to really build that momentum up. So kudos to them. Sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
No, yeah, I was going to say absolutely. I think having that presence in people's feeds consistently is going to create an awareness and a familiarity with your account, so that people are less likely to stop and think, wait, who is this? I remember whenever I worked in orientation at the university, I would see New Orleans Gamecocks pop up, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Why are they following orientation here? But I realize now, looking at the content strategies, that it's to amplify and create that campus connection. So if you genuinely can't think of something that you can post right now, if you have maybe 2 weeks until your next event, go on some university accounts, amplify some things on there, congratulate some folks on there. You might also get some students who are like, oh, I'm moving to there in 2 years. I know that there's a club out there, and that can kind of already create that seed. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all that I had. If there's any last questions, I'm also happy to take some of those. I know that we're probably less than a minute out, but absolutely. I'm looking at in the chat. I'm glad that y'all are finding this helpful. Again, there's going to be a one-sheeter that follows this that you can print out, and you can pin it wherever. There's some QR codes to scan on there. You don't have to worry about a lot of the stuff that I said here.
Awesome. Well, Jesse, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. Wait. Ooh. Noah, there is a way to get that email account, and I will follow up with you. We're having a little bit of issues with those for a little bit, but we can definitely get you a Columbus at uofscalumni.org. Because we prefer that over Gmail. But yeah, thanks for that.
Awesome. Good to know. Thank you.
Yep.